time. By the way, as I said, what's up, Ma? She's already texted me 2 times saying, "Where the hell are you at, kid?" I'm right here, man. I'm right here. Apologies, everyone. Yes, Naomi, Nay, I am late. Man, you are on a clock. Do you have like a clock going all the time? Maybe I should get one of those. I'm not going to get into details because it's frustrating. It's boring to get into details as to why outside factors have me late. But this is the other part about the frustrations with being 15 minutes behind my normal start time. I got so many things to talk about. I mean, like 100 things to talk about. If I would have started 15 minutes early, I would still be going over. So buckle up if you guys are happy to be here. If you're looking for all the stories that we run through here every day, and when I say we, I mean me. We're gonna be going a little bit over. So apologies to Don Idarola, and apologies to you guys who have to deal with. Well, I guess I'll jump over to TDR, please. Once the hour is up, that meaning that 45 minutes is up, because there's so much happening. There's so much happening. Yesterday, while I was on this here stream, I knew Mark Wayne Mullin was over there embarrassing himself in his confirmation hearings, fighting with so many people. And I mean, almost actually fighting the way that dumbass always talks about how he wants to fight. It's how he is. So I'm glad you guys are all here. We got that guy happening, but we also have Democrats taking a stand. I'm back on the Epstein file situation. Sometimes the stories have to break before I go to talking about them again. And man, it's juicy. There's details behind it. And there's more of this cover up that's happening that's encompassing many more Republicans. Man, they are scrambling. So to all the regulars out there, Miss Firefly Dragon, good to see you. The Wrath of John, she says. John has never John has never even like frowned his forehead before. That guy's too nice. So glad you guys are all here. Let's go ahead and get started. Ali says that no worries. So I'm gonna go off of that energy and not try and go too fast and talk at like 100 miles an hour like I tend to do when I'm trying to rush. No rush here. Let me ease in. Got my water. Tomorrow I'm gonna have my energy drink. I have a new one already, by the way. Um, but let me just ease in. Let's get a little zen before we talk about some things that these Democrats are now doing to push back against, I think, probably one of the dumbest moves that these Republicans in the House are trying to do to continue covering up for Donald Trump and his part in these Epstein files. Did you guys hear about a briefing, or was it a deposition yesterday? Who knows? What it ended up being was absolutely nothing. Here's Representative Yasamin Ansari telling us the story of what went down behind closed doors yesterday with congressional members, both Democrats and Republicans.
So I just got home from the most insane bullshit that Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche tried to pull. So I want to tell you guys what happened. So as a reminder, last week, the Oversight Committee on a bipartisan basis issued a subpoena for Pam Bondi to come forward and take part in a deposition. So suddenly yesterday, we get notified by Chairman Comer that there's going to be this briefing by Bondi and Blanche with no information about what that means. Truly, like we didn't even know the format. A few hours prior, we found out we'd be able to ask questions. So we show up, and it becomes very clear quickly that this entire fake hearing we had, the intention of it is so that she doesn't have to come and be under oath as part of a deposition. To paint the picture, we were in the committee room for the Oversight Committee that we're always in, where we have public hearings. You've seen this. This is where, the media is there, C-SPAN is there. Everything is super transparent and accessible to the public. This was closed door. She was not under oath. It was not being transcribed. It was not being recorded. And there was no briefing. They didn't even do 5-minute opening statements. It was just 3 minutes of each of us asking questions. And we decided to not take that at all. And we just kept asking her over and over again, do you intend to follow the law and come forward in front of this committee under oath? This lady would not answer the question. She was being so defensive. She was, I mean, I don't know how they thought this was going to go well, because they just looked even more guilty of a cover-up in the way they were acting, and the fact that she literally would not commit to coming forward.
Representative Yasmin Ansari was giving the breakdown of how these Democrats went behind this closed door, supposed to be briefing with Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche about issues with these Epstein files that they're continuing to cover up. It was headed by James Comer, who's been covering for Donald Trump since the beginning. And it got deep, it got detailed. I'm gonna get to the James Comer back and forth in a minute. But what she pointed out was these Democrats walked out because it was a bit of a bait and switch, a last second notification that they were going to have this briefing slash, I guess, a deposition where Pam Bondi, if you're having a deposition, if you're going to do it, you usually do it under oath, in front of media, in front of cameras, on C-SPAN to talk about what it is that you're supposed to be talking about. They, for some reason, as Ansari pointed out, thought this bullshit was going to work. Here's Representative Stansbury giving her take on what that she witnessed when she was also in that closed door, non-briefing, non-deposition to find out more about this cover-up.
Yeah, well, I just walked out of the briefing room, and what is absolutely clear is that Pam Bondi has no intention of complying with the law and the subpoena that we've issued for her to be deposed under oath in front of the committee. In fact, what appears to have happened is that she and Todd Blanche volunteered to come brief the committee, and so we walked in today ready to hear information that they would provide to us about what's going on with the Epstein File Transparency Act. And basically, they said, we've released what we're going to release, and now you can ask me questions. And there was no oath, there were no cameras, the American public were locked out of the room, and it was clear that they were not prepared to answer questions about compliance with the law. And so ultimately, after Chairman Comer insulted Summer Lee, who is the lead in many ways on the subpoena, both of Pam Bondi and the subpoena of the Epstein files, and basically was extraordinarily disrespectful towards her. The Democrats walked out of the room because we're not going to play their games.
So just to be
Representative Stansbury there pointed out that they had no plan to release anything else. As they went behind closed doors where no one can see what's being said or what they're covering up, she pointed out that they said, we've released everything that we got. What questions do you got? Well, they've been asking a lot of questions. How come you can't answer these questions under oath? So as I'm glad they did, they walked out and stopped participating in this charade, which of course angered some of the Republicans that were there that are hoping to continue to cover for Donald Trump. Even this guy, Tim Burchett, who likes to try and play both sides of the fence on this particular issue, he had issues with Pam Bondi before, but now suddenly he has issues with the way that these Democrats responded to the way Pam Bondi continues to play games in everybody's faces.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's all staged. We knew that was going to happen. They started off at the beginning. They didn't want to ask questions. I mean, why not? You could, and they said, we're going to wait till whenever. Why not ask them then and then ask them again? And then if she said something that was totally different, you'd have them. I mean, that's all.
Burchett thinks the whole thing was staged. How are the Democrats going to stage a briefing that James Comer called and told them to come to then when they asked their questions to get no answers? And when one of the main questions was, when are you going to respond to this subpoena where you have to then answer questions under oath in front of the American people about what is it you're covering up? For some reason, Tim Burchett thinks that somehow Democrats can stage a walkout for something that they effing set up. It doesn't make any sense. It's almost like the way that he said when that school shooting happened in his district, and he said, we're not going to do anything about it. I don't care if children get killed in this Christian school, by the way. Tim Burchett has always been a piece of trash. He's always been a type of person who will turn on, I guess, children in that school and the children that were assaulted and trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently also Donald Trump, because that's who they're covering up for. Let me get Maxwell Frost to jump in and kick a couple few of these folks' asses around to tell people exactly what it is that's happening and why they don't trust Pam Bondi. It's the same reason everyone else doesn't trust Pam Bondi. Here that is.
I mean, to me, it's very clear that the purpose of this entire fake hearing, this fake deposition, is the Attorney General trying to weasel herself out of sitting in front of us under oath, under a bipartisan subpoena that we gave her committee. We asked her multiple times, are you going to come and speak with us under oath? She would not say yes. Filibuster, filibuster, filibuster would not say yes. And so why do we, and then our Republican colleagues say, is this not enough? Why don't you want to speak to her now? We want her under oath because we do not trust her. Why don't we trust her? Because she's a liar. Look at how that Judiciary Committee hearing went. She was spying on members of Congress when they were in the DOJ looking at the documents unredacted. Look at what she's done as far as not putting documents relating to Donald Trump on the website, not releasing them and only doing it when the public noticed and said something about it. We want her under oath because we don't trust her. We want her under oath because she has shown that she is involved in a cover-up. My Republican colleagues under the last administration would not stand for this, with Merrick Garland being in front of them, not being under oath. They wouldn't allow that to happen for a second. So we see this for what it is. This is not a briefing. A briefing is when we sit down and we're getting information from the person giving the briefing. That didn't happen here. She sat down. They started the clock like a hearing. It's a hearing. It's a fake deposition where no one can see what's going on, where there's zero transcription, where it's not on C-SPAN or anything, and where no one is under oath and they are allowed to freely lie to members of Congress.
Is it ongoing now that you guys have left?
Maxwell Frost puts it in ways that I think other folks really don't, but it's obvious the way that regular folks put it. And we want Pam Bondi under oath because we do not trust her. It's what I've been saying constantly. We see all these presentations. We see these yelling matches. We see these fake depositions now happening. We see them lying under oath. We've seen Kash Patel lie under oath. We've seen Pam Bondi lie under oath. We've seen all these folks lie constantly. So after we've seen all these embarrassing moments, I feel like he's one of the few people who realizes, listen, we recognize that happening a month or two ago, whenever these things happen. How about we remember it, recognize what they did, and respond to it accordingly, rather than saying, that was an embarrassing news cycle for Pam Bondi. I guess we'll move on to the next lie. How about we respond to those lies and make sure we hold their feet to the fire and don't let them get away with these types of things, which apparently is the next step in trying to cover Donald Trump's ass. But they don't have enough credibility here left to do any of that stuff. So Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi, who were hoping to, I guess, skirt by with this fake deposition, fake briefing, bait and switch that they pulled, look very nervous. Man, and they're trying to answer questions while not answering questions. They're getting very, very nervous. I think people are a lot closer to what it is that we're looking to find that they don't want us to find.
I think it was less than 1% error. Todd, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's right. We said from the beginning that any mistakes that were made, and there should be no mistakes. And so when you say lawyers have said something, that's not a fair question, and you know it, because we took pains to protect victims. When when someone identified that there was a victim, we immediately pulled that document down, fixed it, and put it back up
Immediately.
And so of course we don't ever want to do anything to re-victimize anybody that was victimized by the horrible crimes of Mr. Epstein, and we didn't. To the extent that mistakes were made, and there were mistakes made because of the reasons the Attorney General just said. But when they were identified to us, we fixed them immediately.
Nobody's talking about your fake redaction story, about the mistakes that you say were made over releasing the names and images of some of the victims and continuing to be very painstakingly careful with making sure that you did redact many names of co-conspirators, the clients of Jeffrey Epstein, specifically the one that's in the White House. Stop acting like that's what everybody's concerned about, which, by the way, people have been concerned about that. What we're talking about is that mistake of you guys not releasing the rest of these files, that mistake of telling these folks in this closed door briefing / deposition / fake everything that you've released everything you're going to release and you're not releasing anything else. Damn, the last things that are left in these files must be horrific, must be so damning that even Donald Trump and his red hat supporters can't continue to skirt it and call it locker room talk or something. Let me show you again, because Representative Dan Goldman made sure he pointed out, like I did before, so trigger warning here, this is one of the accounts in those Epstein files that they did reluctantly release after months and a half of not releasing things that they want us to not pay attention to. This is who they're covering, and the things that they're covering up continually, even now, must be even worse than this.
Discuss this administration's massive cover-up of the Epstein files in order to conceal President Trump's involvement. This cover-up reached its apex last month when Attorney General Pam Bondi falsely testified under oath before the House Judiciary Committee. The Attorney General testified, quote, "There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that," unquote. This is a lie. There is credible evidence that Donald Trump committed a crime. And that, of course, excludes the nearly 3 million pages that the DOJ is refusing to turn over. Donald Trump is mentioned thousands of times in the Epstein files. There are multiple allegations that he sexually assaulted young girls. But I want to focus on one victim's allegations that the FBI unquestionably found to be credible. And now we know why. She credibly accuses Donald Trump of sexually assaulting her when she was between 13 and 15. Let me teach you how little girls are supposed to be. Trump unzipped his pants and put her head down, quote, down to his penis, bit the S out of it. Trump struck the victim and said words to the effect of, get this little B the hell out of here. They included this victim's testimony. They would not have done so if they did not find the evidence credible, which means that Attorney General Bondi lied when she stated under oath that there is no evidence that Donald Trump committed a crime, that Jeffrey Epstein emailed Ghislaine Maxwell and said, quote, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned.
Let's not forget the things that we've already seen, the things we've already heard, the things we've already read, and the things that they continue to cover up. We've talked about that a while ago. Even the dog that hasn't barked from the Epstein email to Ghislaine Maxwell or vice versa, how he hasn't been the big dog to bark. Everyone knows this. We're seeing it right in front of us. And the cover up isn't even that good. That's why the only way that they can continue with this cover up is for enough people in positions of power or influence or in elected office to not do anything about it. And I guess I'm in more of a positive vibe here with these Democrats because they're doing something about it. The pressure's on Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, and all of these folks, including Donald Trump, sweating bullets lately over having to deal with this because apparently their bad excuses and their blatant lies just hasn't worked yet. Let me show you how desperate James Comer really is. James Comer, again, is one who is heading this sham briefing that they were telling us about the Democrats walked out of. One main back and forth between that chairman of this hearing here, of James Comer, was Representative Summer Lee. She told her story of what happened between her and Comer because he didn't like the questions that she was asking, so he got to calling her names.
So I just walked out of a fake deposition, fake hearing with Pam Bondi, where Chairman Comer called me a bitch. So here's what actually happened. We had already subpoenaed her because she has not been in compliance with our subpoena and the Epstein Transparency Act to release the full, complete, unredacted Epstein files. She has been withholding them. She has been obstructing justice since last July. And a couple weeks ago, we finally got bipartisan support to subpoena her, to bring her into our committee to ask questions. Now, today's attempt, sham of a hearing, was your attempt to bypass that. Multiple times we asked her if she would come in and she would talk to our committee on the record, under oath, in the public. She refused to do so. So instead of directing any more questions to her where she's not under oath, where she can continue to lie to us, I directed my questions to our chairman to see if he would compel her to comply with the subpoena that he signed and that he issued. He could not respond. I asked him if she did not come, if he would hold her in contempt, move with contempt proceedings like he did with other people who he said did not comply with our subpoenas. And instead of answering this simple question with a yes, of course, he said that I was bitching and that I was wasting his time and that we didn't have to talk about this anymore. So that's where we are. That's why we are trying to move to impeach her. That's why we introduced those articles of impeachment, because it is clear that she has no intention on cooperating with Congress. She has no intention on cooperating with the American people. She is not seeking justice for survivors or anyone else. She is there to run cover for Donald Trump, for his allies, and for herself. And it's time that we get her out of there.
That's the kind of action I'm talking about. I've been talking about it as far as going for Donald Trump, so maybe it'll spread. But as she pointed out there in the back end of that discussion about what happened between her and James Comer, she's saying she's going to file these, I believe already did even, file these articles of impeachment for Pam Bondi from the DOJ because she's covering up for a mass number of pedophiles, and probably the biggest one in the White House. I mean, the one that's been mentioned thousands of times in these files that they refuse to, let us hear. So in case people don't want to listen to Black woman there, Summer Lee, maybe we should listen to CNN and anchors talk about the exact same story. Maybe you need a little bit of a solid connection, some confirmation from someone like Caitlin Collins to tell everyone exactly what is that happened and why is it. Maybe the next question should be asked, why exactly did James Comer say to Representative Summer Lee in a professional setting that she's bitching? I wonder why.
It didn't take long after they got behind closed doors that there was an argument between a Democrat on the committee, Summer Lee, and the Republican chairman of the committee, James Comer. Summer Lee was essentially complaining that this was basically a hearing that was happening without cameras, without the public being able to see what it was that Pam Bondi was saying. And a lot of the Democrats were asking if she was still going to honor that subpoena and show up for a deposition with them. Chairman Comer was responding that it was a briefing and was asking if they would feel better if they put the chairs in the room in a circle to make it seem like more like a briefing. And then he asked Summer Lee if she was just trying to embarrass the Attorney General or if she was actually trying to get information about the Epstein investigation. Summer Lee responded that she was just questioning him about the rules of the committee and the decorum of the committee and whether or not they were still going to issue and conduct that deposition with Pam Bondi. Then it got really heated at one moment where Chairman Comer responded to Congresswoman Summer Lee and said, "You've wasted 3 minutes of everyone's time just kind of," and I'm quoting him now, "bitching." Summer Lee responded, I'm told, according to someone who was in the room, "Really? Wow, bitching." And there were audible gasps inside the room when Chairman Comer made that remark.
There's a reason that Comer wanted this behind closed doors. First of all, he keeps saying that she was bitching, but also, the disrespectful nature of, if you want a briefing, which I'm sure he sounded similar to this, if you wanted a briefing, we could put the chairs in a circle. So first off, the disrespectful nature of saying that it'll suddenly be a briefing because of chairs in a circle, as if that's something someone would accept. They went into this with this aggressive nature to make sure that these folks who they invited in there, they could, I guess, create some kind of a narrative where they said they tried, but no one would listen. Bro, you're not putting her under oath. Pam Bondi wouldn't even answer the question whether or not she's going to come back and respond to that subpoena for her to do this under oath, which makes you wonder, why would the Attorney General be afraid of being under oath to talk about these files that she's been talking about since before Donald Trump got back into office? Maybe we can deduce it down to that there's a cover-up going on. All Summer Lee kept doing was asking, when is she going to do that? I need a yes or no answer. And apparently it was kind of no. Instead, it's calling someone a bitch. I'm sorry that she's bitching. I like the way Representative Ansari also put it from her perspective, sitting in the same room.
And then my colleague, Congresswoman Lee, directed her question at Chairman Comer and said, Chairman Comer, are you going to ensure that Attorney General Pam Bondi comes forward? And if she doesn't, what actions are you willing to take? He decided to use that opportunity to say that she was bitching. And that's when we all just fucking had it and walked out. And this is unacceptable. And I look forward to seeing Pam Bondi on April 14th.
So in case we're missing the way that this is supposed to go down, James Comer is the chair of this committee that sent out that subpoena. And he was a part of making sure it happened because he had to. As she's not responded to it, James Comer should be on the same page as Summer Lee, who are asking, yo, why is it you're not showing up? I believe they said it for April 14th is the date that I think is getting floated around. James Comer should be just as upset as these Democrats about getting her in front of this committee to discuss things under oath in front of cameras and in front of the American people, because he, as he also said, we're looking to get to the bottom of this. But apparently getting to the bottom of this is stopping right before you get to the bottom of the barrel, which is always Donald Trump. James Comer, by the way, after all this is said and done, after we actually get this real information and the people that are responsible for it are brought up on charges and thrown their fucking asses into jail, maybe at that point, we should also go after James Comer, because he's putting his face front and center as part of this group that's absolutely looking to cover for Donald Trump. What is it that James Comer's got involved in this, that he's invested so much into this to protect Donald Trump to this degree? I wonder. I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. So lastly here, I want to give more time to the person that James Comer insulted in that closed door briefing, Representative Summer Lee, just so she can expand a little bit on why and hopefully when they're going to get Pam Bondi up on these impeachment charges that she then filed.
To our lawful subpoena in a deposition. So instead, I asked Chairman Comer if he would compel her to come to our deposition. If she did not come, would he force her to, or if he would move for contempt hearings as he did for other people who did not respond to our subpoena? Instead of answering as an adult, he said that I was bitching, which is, again, something that would not be allowed if we were operating under the rules of this committee, because engaging in personalities is actually something that we are not able to do. If C-SPAN and the public were there, I'd imagine that he would not act that way. Neither here nor there. We expected AG Bondi to be adversarial. We expected her to be confrontational. And we expected her to not offer us much information. But that's why I introduced impeachment articles, because she has already been obstructing justice. She has already weaponized the DOJ. She has already ended investigations into Trump and his allies. She has used this role essentially as one to help the president. She does not answer to the president. The DOJ does not have the right or the privilege of withholding information from an active investigation, ignoring the laws of our land, which the Epstein Transparency Act is, with our subpoena from last July is. And the oversight Dems will continue to press for accountability. We'll continue to press for justice for survivors while also keeping them centered in this. So at the end of the day, we are still here seeking answers for women, for girls, and for the American public who has demanded justice, who have demanded answers to this. And whether or not they will pretend that the documents that they've given us is enough, we already know that they have not complied. And we are asking other people to make sure that we do not let them off the hook right now. So we look forward to her on the record deposition with our committee in response to our lawful subpoena.
We'll look forward to it. We've seen her before. We've seen the way that she responds on camera, in front of people, in front of reporters, and on cable networks where she can't dodge it any further. That's why they're afraid. It's getting really bad. I want to be the usual, although I'm usually the pessimist, I want to go ahead and put on record, man, this is getting really bad for them. I love to see it. It's getting really bad for them. And because these folks, this group of Democrats, which, the number of them is continuing to grow, I assume, is not taking their foot off of the gas like I think most politicians generally do, which is the reasons why this has gone through so many different administrations to allow this to continue to go on. There's a new, crop of folks that have come through, and they're not playing this anymore. Other folks think they can keep delaying it and pushing to the side and protecting this old ass man, but Donald Trump is going to die. And when he dies, all the people that help facilitate all of his disgusting behavior will then be held responsible for all the things that we refused to hold him responsible for. So let's move on to something else. I think it was Warmonger Monday and then it was Warmonger Wednesday. It doesn't work that great with, Thursday, but they're still warmongers. Things are escalating in the Middle East. Things are escalating specifically in Iran and Qatar now. This kind of sucks. Did you guys see about these burning natural gas facilities that were happening in Qatar? Of course, at the hands of Iranian missiles. It was a surprising sight. And many of these folks in this video couldn't believe what they were seeing.
God. Oh, oh shit. अबे किसमें किधर गिरा अरे वहां गिरा सामने
Not sure who all those folks were, but that was apparently in Qatar, where natural gas facilities were bombed. You saw the flames, you saw the fire, you saw people running for their lives because more and more of those missiles came raining down. And now this is the thing. That happened in Qatar, so I'm sure a lot of folks were like, "Oh my God, Iran is escalating the war." There's just one small problem here. If you see these fires that are being burned, and those are probably also oil and natural gas facilities as well. The problem is this is footage from South Pars gas field. A South Pars gas field is the largest, I believe they said, in the world, and it was bombed by Israel, and that is in Iran. This one happened before that first one that I just showed. This is what Israel did, and then the response then laid out into Qatar, which is a problem for the Qataris, which is a problem for them who thought they had some kind of an agreement or deal going on with Donald Trump as he continues on with this war, a war that he said, I had no idea that they were going to start bombing other facilities. I had no idea they were going to stop bombing neighboring countries. Why would they do that? No one ever told me anything about it. The thing is this is getting really bad. Let me let CNN give you guys a breakdown of how this whole thing started, where it's going, and man, how much worse it could probably get.
The war in its 20th, 19th day expanded with these energy facilities on both sides of the Persian Gulf being targeted, starting with Iran announcing that its facilities on the Gulf that are part of the South Pars gas field, the world's largest natural gas offshore field, were struck. Serious explosions. Iranian state media saying that the red lines in this conflict, if you can believe there are red lines, have changed. And a spokesperson for the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps vowing retribution. So on the southern side of the Gulf, across from where the Iranian facilities were struck, we saw that Qatar saw its kind of crown jewel of its economy, its own natural gas sites hit, and substantial damage from two separate strikes in that area. The UAE, Abu Dhabi, reporting that it's shutting down its own natural gas operations right now after strikes in that area as well. And Qatar then going and further and declaring that Iran's security and military attaches to Iran's diplomatic mission in Qatar are now persona non grata, given 24 hours to leave.
That's the description of an escalation in the Middle Eastern war that Donald Trump started thinking it would be a day or two. The problem is he's an idiot. So outside of this, the UAE, Abu Dhabi, they're saying they're also shutting down these fields as well out of a fear of how much worse these things could get. But as he also pointed out, it all started with that bombing of that facility in Iran. And they pointed out that red lines have changed. Who changed those red lines? As you heard, they said it was Israel that changed those red lines. And once red lines change, they get to bombing other things that they weren't bombing. So as the sweat is now trickling down this guy's cheek, Donald Trump was compelled to respond to it. This is what he said on his social media page. This is crazy. He says, Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as South Pars gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did have any idea that it was going to happen. I'm going to tell you guys what he's pointing out here. He says the United States knew nothing about this. Qatar knew nothing about this. It was our best buddy ally, Israel. It was those good guys that did it. Donald Trump said, I knew nothing about this. I was sitting down planning out my weekend golf trip, and suddenly look what happened. Here's more from what he said, though, after he gave that dismissal and throw them under the bus. He said, unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack, and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. Here's the caps part. No more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case, Qatar. In which instance, the United States of America, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field in an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. I do not want to authorize this level of violence and destruction because of the long-term implications that it will have on the future of Iran. Donald Trump, as he usually does, does things, gets himself into it. Then when responsibility time is starting to be doled out, what he does is he ducks, he dodges, he pushes everyone else that he called friends and allies in front of him because he's a fucking coward. He puts it on display every day. Every day he puts it on display. And now I think this might be a line you probably don't want to cross. Then saying that it was all Israel that did it. Our best buddies, our best friends, the most innocent people ever. Isn't this weird how that works? The problem with that is other people have their stories about who did this.
An Israeli source tells CNN that the strikes on Iran were coordinated with the U.S. But take a look at what President Trump announced a couple hours ago on Truth Social. This is remarkable. He says, quote, Israel, out of anger for what's taking place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as the South Pars gas field in Iran. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack. No more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field. He seems to be trying to establish some red lines in the conflict. If it's true the U.S. didn't know that Israel is going to strike these gas fields in Iran, that's a startling admission, Alex, that a little bit 2.5 weeks into the war that U.S. and Israel launched together, that they're not in coordination. I don't know what that says.
I know what it says. It says Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. It says Donald Trump throws anyone else under the bus and he thinks that he can continue to skirt by without any responsibility for the things that he's done. So, we've got United States. Well, we got MAGA running the United States, and we've got Israel being run by maybe Benjamin Netanyahu. We still haven't seen or heard from that guy except for those AI videos that's trying to prove that he's not dead. Still, we've got Donald Trump blaming Israel. We've got Israel saying, yo, listen, we did all this shit together. You and I, we're best buddies. Remember? The lies eventually catch up with you when you escalate a war because you do things, you lie about them, and you expect things to never really come to light. This morning, Pete Hegseth had another one of those press conferences where he's puffing his chest out and saying a bunch of things about how bloody he wants the war to get. And he was asked a question when he only asked very friendly right-wing media outlets, only asked them to ask questions. The very last question came from one of those right-wing media outlets. And he's thinking, I wish I never asked them.
Jordan Conradson with the Gateway Pundit. So with the strike yesterday on South Pars gas field, if the U.S. didn't know about it or didn't approve of it, it kind of seems like a trend of Israel apparently pursuing their own objectives over U.S. objectives. Why are we helping Israel prosecute this war if they're going to pursue their own objectives?
We hold the cards. We have objectives. Those objectives are clear. We have allies pursuing objectives as well. And the truth speaks for itself. I mean, President Trump was very clear about that. Iran has weaponized energy for decades. Israel clearly sent a warning, and POTUS has made it clear, very clear. Iran knows when you hit Karg Island and you hit military capabilities on Karg Island, which is the only thing we hit, we can hold anything at issue, anything. The United States military controls the fate of that country. Iran has the ability to make the right choices. It should not, going forward, target Arab allies, Arab countries, trying to create pain, the pain that they created themselves. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
There goes coward number 2 running his sorry ass away from the question, which was asked very directly. Why are we helping Israel prosecute this war if they keep doing whatever the hell they want to do? And then apparently it's just their fault now. That's a pretty direct question. And it's one that Pete Hegseth probably, got a pit in his stomach, got a lump in his throat, and was like, how do I stay on the right side of Israel? How do I stay on the right side of Donald Trump when Donald Trump doesn't stay on the right side of anything? Because Donald Trump lies. It's another one of those cases where the people who are subordinates to this piece of trash liar have to then try and answer for the pretzel that he's twisted them into, and none of it ever makes sense. It's why he ran away. Some reason Trump didn't realize that if you're part of bombing these facilities, and then they respond by bombing other facilities that you were, I can't believe they would do it. Didn't know it. It's because he's an egomaniac, and he's never, ever in his life had to actually have consequences for his actions. Never once. So therefore, why would he think there's any consequences to his actions now? But the problem with that is boy, are there going to be some consequences. Here's some posts from Barack Ravid, who's a global affairs correspondent for Axios, also a CNN analyst. This is where it's getting really bad for Trump. Contrary to Trump's statements, senior Israeli and U.S. officials said that the United States had prior knowledge of these Israeli strikes and even approved it in an attempt to pressure Iran. After the Iranians retaliated against Qatar's gas fields, Trump is now changing course. Yeah, we know that is happening because he's a liar, right? But he thinks all he has to do is say, it was Israel, it'll stop, it'll never happen again, and everyone can now calm down. And in fact, if Iran responds further, I'm going to annihilate them. More from Barack Ravid on this. After the first Iranian missile strike, Qatari officials contacted White House envoy Steve Witkoff, that idiot, CENTCOM commanders, and other senior Trump administration officials and demanded, Qatari officials demanded to know whether the U.S. had prior knowledge of this Israeli strike. Do you guys remember this? Qatar gave Donald Trump that $400 million airplane. Qatar did some of these investments. Was it Saudi Arabia did some investments in the United States? It was all those things that Donald Trump was bragging about. It's every time Donald Trump has said, we're bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. Every time he's said those things, those hundreds of billions of dollars of the money that he's getting from these foreign sources, that he's giving them out, whatever it is that he's secretly given them, they're like, hold on, we gave you a $400 million airplane. We bought you off a long time ago. We continue to rub your chin, you sorry son of a bitch. Why are you allowing this to happen? You're destroying our infrastructure now. And that's when Donald Trump gets scared. Just like he did when he was speaking to, I believe, Saudi Arabia leaders. And he said, I would never say something so foolish as to you guys we're the hottest in the world. You guys are hotter. He's afraid of them because they've got him by the nutsack. They've got him. And now he makes these brash decisions and tries to cover them up. Isn't that weird? It's like he doesn't think anything through. It's like a Donald Trump or something. So last thing, from Dan Shapiro, who's a former U.S. ambassador to Israel. Trump can post whatever he likes, but there's zero chance the IDF would conduct a strike in that location without giving CENTCOM full visibility. Trump knew and approved, he says. Now he realizes it's caused a major escalation with Iran's entirely unjustified attacks on Gulf energy targets. That kind of sucks, huh? So the United States of America, just like all of Donald Trump's businesses, all of Donald Trump's people he's ever worked with, all of Donald Trump's decisions and anything that he's ever done are now taking the consequences for his actions. It's almost like if you elect someone like Donald Trump, who's an adjudicated, lifelong liar, and someone who never takes responsibility nor thought for anything that they do, everyone else pays the price. And speaking of paying the price, where you're paying for it, just off the top here, is these gas prices, which have jumped ever since that happened, because it gets worse because of oil and gas facilities that are now being bombed. And then that'll transition into food costs. It'll transition to the farmers' costs for their supplies and equipment in damn near every aspect. And how is that Strait of Hormuz thing working out as we're sending, fighter jets and potentially ground troops and this elite unit of Marines to then go start taking care of things on the ground? How much worse do you think things are going to get? Who knew, right? Who knew? Who knew putting in an insane person in the White House who thinks they can do anything they want, who actually gets jazzed off of blood spilling in the streets as long as it's the people that his white supremacist ass thinks is beneath him? Who knew that putting him in power would destroy this country? Who knew it? Who knew? I feel like all those people with Trump derangement syndrome knew it. And instead, they keep saying things like that. It's the top of the hour, you guys. I got 2 more stories to go. And man, they're good. They're good. So I understand if you guys want to take off and hang out with John. I get it. I mean, I'm going to be here. But I get it if you guys want to. Tell John I say hey and apologies and all that good stuff. You guys know how this works. But on your way out, please like the stream. I mean, I think it's been pretty good today. I had so many things to talk about, and I'm not even done with it. So if you guys could like that stream, share it. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, do that as well. The last two stories, that those of you that are leaving, they'll be up on the page later. You should come back for those. I think they're going to be great. For all you guys that are hanging out, I love you. Let's go ahead and do this a little bit more. I say we should do this a little bit more. So as I pointed out, Pete Hegseth had another one of these 8 a.m. press briefings where he's talking about the blood that's spilling in the streets and how excited all Americans should be about it. Because, you know, we're a murderous dictatorship now in the United States of America. The problem with that is nobody's buying this anymore. I was listening to this as I was driving this morning, and I was like, wait a second. Does he think he sounds good? Does he think this is going to work? Because this sounds really bad.
I stand here today speaking to you, the American people, not through filters, not through reporters, not through cable news spin. A dishonest and anti-Trump press will stop at nothing. We know this at this point. To downplay progress, amplify every cost, and call into question every step. Sadly, TDS is in their DNA. They want President Trump to fail. But you, the American people, know better.
There's definitely something the American people know better. That is to listen to this lying ass. So again, this is happening right when there's these natural gas fields being bombed, both in Qatar and in Iran, at the hands of Israel and United States. I mean, that's depending on who you believe. But Pete Hegseth put his face in front of another podium and microphone. And for the first 10 minutes or so of this press briefing, Pete Hegseth went into his normal launchpad mode of attacking the media. Apparently, everybody's got Trump derangement syndrome, and that's going to make people not realize what we're seeing right in front of us is a disaster being headed by his drunk ass. This is the rest and more of his push to lambaste the media. Man, this is not going to work. This looks really bad, dude.
Yes, there are reporters in front of me, but they are not our audience today. It's you, the good, decent, patriotic American people. You, the hardworking, tax-paying, God-fearing American patriots. The media here, not all of it, but much of it, wants you to think just 19 days into this conflict that we're somehow spinning toward an endless abyss or a forever war or a quagmire. Nothing could be further from the truth. Hear it from me, one of hundreds of thousands who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, who watched previous foolish politicians like Bush, Obama, and Biden squander American credibility. This is not those wars. President Trump knows better. Epic fury is different. It's laser focused. It's decisive. Our objectives, given directly from our America First president, remain exactly what they were on day one. These are not the media's objectives, not Iran's objectives, not new objectives, our objectives, unchanged, on target, and on plan.
This is embarrassing. It's not going to work. So he thinks doing his, Fox and Friends anchor thing is somehow going to work when it comes to trying to lambaste and tell everyone else that they're the bad guys. This media is not going to convince you that we're not executing this war with direct severity and murder. What they're understanding is that you're in the middle of a problem. And then when you have to start telling the media in front of you that they can't change the narrative to talk about what is that we're seeing just to make Trump look bad, you're making yourself look just as bad as Trump is making himself look. Is this supposed to be convincing? Are people supposed to, maybe they're doubting what's going on? Maybe they're former red hat wearers and like, well, maybe this war is good because I do like seeing brown people die. And then once you execute that, they're starting to realize this is a problem. Do you think those people are now going to hear you say all this and go, okay, I feel better now. I feel so much better. It's his last shot across the bow against the media, but he includes some other folks, other countries, even in this attack. I ask the question, does he think this is going to work?
The world, the Middle East, our ungrateful allies in Europe, even segments of our own press should be saying one thing to President Trump. Thank you. Thank you for the courage to stop this terror state from holding the world hostage with missiles while building or attempting to build a nuclear bomb. Thank you for doing the work of the free world. The world, the Middle East.
Those ungrateful European allies. Oh, of course, the crazed, rabid fake news press. They should be thanking Donald Trump. They should be thanking Donald Trump as gas prices skyrocket. They should be thanking Donald Trump as more and more Americans come home in caskets covered in the American flag. They should be thanking Donald Trump as he's destroying the economy. They should be thanking Donald Trump as he's raiding our treasury. They should be thanking Donald Trump as people lose jobs. They should be thanking Donald Trump as the world is destroyed and it's burning right now. For some reason, they think saying, you should thank me when you're a loser is gonna somehow work. Isn't that weird? I think that was the beginning of what he thought would work as far as trying to resell this war. But the problem is, he said, well, that ain't worked. Let me transition back over into the bloodlust and the bloodthirst. I mean, we are Americans, right? We like to see people die, right? Let's see if that works.
They could, but they can't. The last job anyone in the world wants right now? Senior leader for the IRGC or Besiege. Temp jobs, all of them. And to borrow a page from Admiral Ernest King in World War II, we've decided to share the ocean with Iran. We've given them the bottom half. We've damaged or sunk over 120 of their Navy ships, with battle damage assessments pending for many more. See, oftentimes we have to wait a few days on battle damage assessment to get the real number. Their surface fleet is no longer a factor. Their submarines, they once had 11, are gone. Their military, they could, but they can't.
Again, all of the death and destruction that you're putting forward isn't enough to really sell this. It isn't. Okay, so but we've got that. We share the ocean with these losers. We share the ocean with these subhuman creatures, and we share with it the bottom of the ocean with them. It's not gonna work. It's not going to work. So here's the ironic part of his speech. I believe it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes worth at the beginning of this press conference. Here's the most ironic part of this speech. Here's more of the characterization of the people that he's going after. See if you find any similarities to the way that we're acting in this country.
Their core industries, not steel or agriculture or tourism. Their core industries are state-sponsored terrorism, proxy militias, underground networks, ballistic missiles, and a violent, messianic, Islamist ideology chasing some sort of apocalyptic endgame. A regime like that, refusing to abandon its nuclear ambitions, is not just a regional problem. It's a direct threat to America, to freedom, and to civilization. Their core
They're a violent Islamic ideology chasing some sort of apocalyptic endgame. So if you hear that, you'd go, oh my God, these guys are so scary. All they're doing is falling behind their religion and then have a radical version of that religion to control people and also tell them that they have some kind of authority over God's word. And then once they have that authority over God's word, they can unleash that in war form and say that killing people is what God wants them to do for for Iran. It's like he describes exactly what it is that we're doing here. Hey, you don't have to believe me. You guys remember this?
As the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran rages on, U.S. military commanders have reportedly been invoking extremist Christian rhetoric about biblical end times, selling the conflict to American troops as a holy war. The watchdog Military Religious Freedom Foundation says it's been inundated with more than 200 complaints from members across all branches of the U.S. military regarding these comments. One combat unit commander reportedly said the war is part of God's divine plan, and that, quote, President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth, unquote.
That wasn't an Islamic screed that's being told to military from military leaders about how he's ushering in Armageddon. He's got the hand of God. Donald Trump, who's being surrounded by all those sycophant fake Christians putting their hands over him, looks like what you would imagine what he's describing is happening with supreme leaders and Islamic leaders who are saying things like, you do as I say, because I'm the word of God. It's almost like we're doing that same thing here. As a matter of fact, in that same press conference, which isn't a press conference yet, it's just Pete Hegseth, barking around. With no irony, with no recognition of the irony surrounding him. Pete Hegseth had just told us we're fighting against these radical Islamists who believe in this ideology where they're chasing some kind of apocalyptic endgame, forgetting they did it, and also that he did it again in the same press conference.
And I say the same to every American who wants peace through strength. May Almighty God continue to bless our troops in this fight. And again, to the American people, please pray for them every day, on bended knee, with your family, in your schools, in your churches, in the name of Jesus Christ. To the troops, keep going, and Godspeed. Over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
you. In the name of Jesus Christ, let's fight this war. In the name of Jesus Christ. It's weird. It's like he thinks everyone is as dumb as he is. It's like he thinks whoever prepared those remarks for him that he didn't read over apparently before he stepped his face out there, didn't realize how ironic it would be. How about some more irony? Here's the same guy who's talking about the things that Iran does with their money, what they refuse to do towards their citizens. Like, again, see if you find the irony in this statement.
Iran's an energy-rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by a radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. That's why you had millions of Iranians protesting, because they felt like their quality of life didn't match what it could be or should be. And what was the Iranian state? There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. Because they took the money they make and they invest it in tunnels, and they invested in missiles, and they invested in launchers and UAVs, and we are destroying and degrading that in historic proportions. But it doesn't mean they won't still have some and try to hold people at issue, which is why we're fighting every single day to continue to compel. And you mentioned, Iran.
I feel like everyone sees it. It's like, I think like it's pretty clear. So they're run by this radical ideology, and they spend all of their money instead of investing it in their people on bombs and missiles. As this guy is asking for all kinds of money and is taking all kinds of money and is bypassing congressional authority to then go kill people. But what the main thing he pointed out is that's why millions of Iranians are protesting. That's why, because all they do is kill people. That's why we call them the #1 state sponsor of terror. There's this weird thing that went on in the United States of America when it comes to people protesting, a radical Christian-based leadership group.
Look at this. Millions of people across the country marching as we speak against the policies of President Trump. This is Boston. Look at that.
I know what it's like to come home when you are 5 years old and your dad is not there. And I am still standing.
Well, are you all ready to defend this democracy? Are you ready to fight fascism? Are you prepared to destroy authoritarianism once and for all? House and the president.
That goes on for a long time. The No Kings protests. Do you think that people aren't making these connections every time Pete Hegseth says these things? That this radical ideology from other countries is fueling the war when the radical ideology of Christianity is running this war, or that tons and millions of people in Iran weren't in the streets protesting. That is before they started attacking them, and also there was millions and millions of people in the streets in the United States of America protesting this radical ideological administration that's run off of fake Christianity. Isn't it weird how that works? But the main thing, last thing from Pete Hegseth and his really, really eye-opening press conference here is how much money Iran spends. They could be an oil-rich country. They could be useful in the world. But instead, all of their money goes to fighting wars and killing people. Here he is, still today.
And what happened with that as well. As far as $200 billion, I think that number could move, obviously. It takes money to kill bad guys. So we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future, ensure that our ammunition everything's refilled, and not just refilled, but above and beyond. I mean, President Trump, as he said, rebuilt the military in his first term, didn't think he'd use it as dynamically in his second, but he had. So thank goodness he did that. And an investment like this is meant to say, hey, we'll replace anything that was spent. And now that we're reviving our defense industrial base and rebuilding the arsenal of freedom and cutting deals like our great deputy secretaries here is doing, long lead times on exquisite munitions, we're going to be refilled faster than anyone imagined. And I think, we're also still dealing with the environment that Joe Biden created, which was depleting those stockholders and not sending them to our own military, but to Ukraine, which is every time we reach back and look at
$200 billion. And his excuse is it costs a lot of money to kill bad guys. You guys ready to pay $200 billion more, by the way. They've been spending billions and billions already. $200 billion more. They're going to go to Congress and ask for $200 billion on top of all the billions that they've already spent unlawfully, to ask for us to refuel up our rockets and all of our equipment and all the things that we're wasting on this war to make things so much worse. But as long as brain dead Americans go, oh, but we get to kill people, sign me up. No healthcare, kill people, sign me up. No child care, kill people, sign me up. No jobs, kill people, sign me up. High gas prices, kill people, sign me up. That's what Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump think is going to sell in this country. And by the way, I understand why they think that, because it's always worked in the past. They're scary brown people. They're going to come kill us. If we kill them first, we can quell that for 3 to 6 months. Then we'll regurgitate this same bullshit excuses one more time and say, they're back. They're back. They're so magical that they're back and they're coming to kill us again. And now that they're coming to kill us again, I'm going to need another $200 billion. SNAP benefits, we can't afford that. Healthcare, we can't afford that. What's wrong with you guys? We need to kill people in the name of Jesus. In Jesus' name, kill people. It's weird. Let me wrap this up, you guys. Damn, I'm 20 minutes past. We'll see. I know it's been a long one. I got a lot to say. And I've got one more story. It was really fun. Like I pointed out, Markwayne Mullin was going through his confirmation hearings yesterday to replace Kristi Noem at DHS. Markwayne Mullin is supposed to replace Kristi Noem at DHS. Markwayne dumbass Mullin. There was a lot that happened, but the one thing that I really keyed in on was his back and forth with Rand Paul, Republican Rand Paul. I thought they're all supposed to get along. Man, did they not get along.
I think before I can start my opening statement, I have to address the remarks the chairman made, calling me a liar. Sir, I think everybody in this room knows that I'm very blunt and direct to the point. And if I have something to say, I'll say it directly to your face. If you recall, back in my House days, we actually did have this conversation because of remarks that I made. You were in a room. I simply addressed that. I said I could understand because of the behavior you were having, that I could understand why the neighbor did what he did. As far as my terms, the snake in the grass, sir, I work around this room to try to fix problems. I've worked with many people in this room. Seems like you fight Republicans more than you work with us. I did address those remarks. I did explain your gimmicks by the amendment you put forth. And as far as me saying that I invoke violence, I don't. I don't think anybody should be hit by surprise. I don't like that. But if I do have something to say, everybody in this room knows I'll come straight to you. I'll say it publicly and I'll say it privately, but I'll never say it behind your back. So for you to say I'm a liar, sir, that's not accurate.
Markwayne Mullin, the great quote from that little minute is, this is to Rand Paul. I can understand why your neighbor did what he did. Do you guys remember what happened to Rand Paul with his neighbor? In case you don't remember, in case you didn't, weren't paying attention yet at that point. This is several years ago, I think, at this point. Apparently there was some dispute with Rand Paul and his neighbor. His neighbor hit him with a tackle, the way you'd see in like those old school commercials where the football guy runs through people. Rand Paul got taken down. Rand Paul got sacked, you'd say. And it was actually pretty serious because Rand Paul's not a big guy. Rand Paul's not a young guy. Rand Paul was seriously injured. And apparently there was a battle between he and Markwayne Mullin over that incident. And Markwayne Mullin said again just yesterday, I can understand why your neighbor did what he did. And I just might do it again. This is the same Markwayne Mullin that was fighting with that union leader. So the battle was on between him and Rand Paul after that happened.
And this idea that the only thing you're upset about is not that you were for violence. What you're upset about is that I called you a liar because you said it to my face, which really more about this machismo that you have. When in Oklahoma, the media asked you about the refugee welfare programs, the programs you voted to continue funding, it was this whole idea that you were going to transfer it because you were uncomfortable, your anger, low impulse control, causes you to then go after and decide that you're going to go after me as well. And so you say you completely understood that I was assaulted from behind, had 6 ribs broken and part of my lung removed. And that was just fine. That's something that you, I guess, approve of as far as resolution of political problems. When I talked to you privately on the phone, there was no apology. You just said, well, we can let our political difference, go by. And you said a few minutes ago, we can just set it aside. And this idea.
Did you guys know that Rand Paul had broken ribs? I do remember that part. What I forgot was a portion of his lung was removed. Man, they fucked him up, which I can understand why he's taking offense to these things that Markwayne Mullin is saying. And again, his confirmation hearings to become the next head of DHS. DHS, who is apparently running a bunch of other hotheads that run into the streets and assault and attack and arrest people and even murder some of them. How does Markwayne Mullin think this line of anger and aggression is going to get him anywhere? It's actually funny because Rand Paul pointed out, he said, your anger and your low impulse control. What a nice way of saying you're like a Neanderthal, but he wasn't done.
In the days after the fight, you said, and I quote, sometimes people just need to be punched in the face. Oof. Is that still your opinion that political disputes can sometimes and often only be resolved by violence?
No, I don't always agree with that. I don't believe in political violence. I've made that very clear. But sometimes people do need, theoretically speaking, sir, I get it. It's about character assassination for you. That's the way this game is played. I understand it. And you are making this about you, which is fine, but that doesn't keep me as Secretary of Homeland Security.
Character assassination when you were the one lauding the assault. Who do you think started that character assassination? I'm just repeating what you have done in character assassination. I'm repeating your support for the assault. So that's somehow something I started?
No, sir. What I'm saying is you're adding a lot to it.
Markwayne Mullin, he said at the very end, that's just adding to it. And what he was thinking was, don't make me get out of this chair and run through your ass. What he wanted to do was, hit Rand Paul with yet another spear. He hit him with he hit him with the WWE right through his ass. I'll bust out your other lung, bro. Again, this is Markwayne Mullin's confirmation hearing to head the Department of Homeland Security. Man, if they confirm this guy, I'm telling you, I'm going to lose my mind. Rand Paul better not then vote to confirm this guy. It's something that wouldn't be out of question, trust. But here's one more back and forth. I love this, man. I wish I could have watched this whole thing. I was a little upset that it happened right in the middle of the day. But in this particular moment, Rand Paul's approach here is to point out, as he pointed out, Markwayne Mullin's lack of impulse control, his anger, his hot-headedness, his lack of even willing to apologize for the hot-headed things that he said and the threats that he always makes. But it goes all the way down to the way he thinks political disagreements should be settled. Markwayne Mullin's crazy. But look, Rand Paul points it out.
In the days after the fight, you did many interviews in which you justified the violence as historically justified by precedents, such as caning and dueling. Is it today your opinion that the caning of Charles Sumner was not only justified, but argues still for resolving our political differences with violence?
What I was simply pointing out is some of the rules that still apply to this body. For instance, dueling with 2 consenting adults is still there. I was pointing out what is
still illegal for
acceptable.
170 years. There's no precedent for legal dueling. Even then, they fled the country. Do you realize that the man that beat Charles Sumner with a cane, he beat him till he was unconscious? You know why no senators intervened? Because his friend held a gun on the other senators, and he kept beating him until he crushed his skull. That's what you're insinuating is the precedent of the Senate, and that's what you live by. That is a very, very dangerous sentiment.
You better hope I don't beat you to submission, Rand. I don't think this is going to go that well for him. I mean, I hope it doesn't go that well for him. I can't have any more assumptions about what is it they'll do, because what they always do is kneel and bow down and continue to do it anyway. So I wonder, obviously, if you have this kind of a back and forth, if you have this kind of a public moment when I'm sure people are asking questions, Rand Paul, you didn't get anywhere with that guy. You were really actually trying to help him, maybe to see if he would apologize, because as we all know, Rand Paul talks a big game. Rand Paul likes to disagree with Donald Trump. That is, right before then, he goes right back to following everything that Donald Trump tells him to do. And this would probably be the same case. But man, he kept on with the insults. So he went on Fox News, that is, Rand Paul did. And he was asked a very direct question. After all this back and forth, after he insulted you further, after he said he wishes he could beat your ass again, this is what Rand Paul then said on Fox News about whether or not he's going to confirm him.
Nobody really in the modern age that I know of, other than Markwayne Mullin, is justifying political science, political violence as, oh, well, we need a manly way to settle our differences, and sometimes people just need to be punched in the mouth. That to me is bizarre, and I think makes him unfit to lead federal law enforcement.
So can you vote for him?
No, I mean, an apology might have had a chance, but he's had several chances. I talked to him privately, and he referred to it that we had political differences. And today he said we should set aside our political differences. Well, political differences would be, I'm against the refugee welfare program, and I've told him he's for it. That's a political difference. But if I wished violence on his family, that wouldn't be acceptable. And if he says the violence that happened to me, where I had 6 ribs broken, my lung damaged, part of my lung removed, 2 pneumonias, if he thinks that's justifiable and he can readily understand it, he can completely understand it, I think that makes him unacceptable and unfit to hold office.
You see that, though? He's a no on Markwayne Mullin. Maybe it'll change. But what he did say was he would have had a chance if he would have apologized. How is it that Rand Paul can openly say, I would have given you another chance if you'd have just apologized to me for talking about how you wished you could have broken another one of my ribs, or how you understand why my neighbor broke my rib and I lost a piece of my lung. I had 2 pneumonias. Somehow Rand Paul would still look to confirm that guy. Where are the nuts on Rand Paul at? Jeez, man, you're going to publicly say that? The guy just insulted you again. You went through all of those medical issues. And again, he says, I wish it happened to you again. Let's have a duel. And you're going to confirm him to be head of DHS. But he didn't apologize. If only Markwayne Mullin had apologized, Rand Paul would be all on board for his crazy ass to be head of DHS. So with that thought, there's still a good chance that Rand Paul will vote to let Markwayne Mullin be the head of DHS. because they're all weak. These are the weakest Americans in this entire country. Why are we following them? Why do we continue to follow the weakest people here? That includes Markwayne Mullin with his fake bravado. Because you remember his sorry ass was hanging out behind chairs when January 6th was happening and all of Donald Trump's foot soldiers were running up in the Capitol looking to kill people. Where was the talk about dueling and all that stuff then, Markwayne? Markwayne was hiding and there was a trickle of pee running down his leg. That's what Markwayne Mullin was doing. He talks a big game to Rand Paul because Rand Paul is probably like 5'6" and 97 pounds. But when anybody else is running up near him, he's scared too. Sorry asses. That's all I got, you guys. I'm done. I thought that was fun. There was a lot of stuff that happened with Markwayne Mullin, but that one drew me in. That one's the one I really wanted to talk about. You guys see, you understand why I had to go for an hour and a half? Or actually, I went for like an hour and 15 because I was 15 minutes late. But you guys understand that, right? Maybe I should have saved some of these for tomorrow, but I feel like there's going to be a lot more for tomorrow. Let's see where the Epstein files go. Let's see where the hiding goes. Let's see where this war that we've just expanded goes. Something bad could be happening right now. Okay. We'll see you guys later. Enjoy the damage report for the, few of you guys that hung around and stayed. I assume everyone took off by now. But at least tell your friends that those stories are back up. The Markwayne Mullin thing was, a banger. As Roman Reigns may say. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. For Friday, by the way, don't forget, tomorrow, Friday, it's the end of the week. We're going to have our weekend beverages on tap. I got 2 new energy drinks. I'm not sure which one to choose. Maybe I'll post and ask you guys to choose one for me. In fact, I will do that. Fun times. We'll see you guys on a Friday. See you later, Ma.